Hey, this is Jamie with Stonemaier Games, and welcome to this week's live cast. Today is December 4th. I missed last week because of Thanksgiving, but I'm back today, and I hope you'll join me for a little chat. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I have a bunch of random topics to discuss and some Stonemaier Games news, because today was our monthly e-newsletter that I just sent out a few minutes ago. So if you haven't gotten it yet, there's a link in the description of this video that you can check out. Or if you're watching this video in the future on YouTube, I'll put it there as well. If you're listening to it on audio, because we now have this available as a podcast as well, I don't know where you can get the link, but it'll be around somewhere. Looks like Miles and Megan are the first to join us here. Miles, happy birthday to your daughter today. And Megan, it was lovely to spend Thanksgiving with you. Miles, yeah, I did have a lovely holiday in Chicago. Megan and I went up there. We had a wonderful Thanksgiving with her family. And we did a bunch of different stuff. I'll probably get into that in the discussion here in a few minutes. But yeah, we had a great time. I hope you had a nice Thanksgiving as well. And congrats to your Seahawks for their continued success in the division. Miles is a Seahawks fan. I am a 49ers fan. And so those two teams often compete. As you all can maybe see today, I have a new camera. So the room has a lot more lighting now than my old camera. The only problem I'm realizing right now is that I have a window right here that I've closed the blinds on, but it's still very light. That's why I look so kind of washed out right now. My camera even has a light on it, but I haven't even turned the light on right now. Let's see if that affects yeah, I don't know. But I guess it's better than being really, really dark. So a little bit better than before. Maybe I'll do some filming later in the day from now on. Not these live videos, but other videos, so that the light isn't crazy. Yeah, so let's see. Let's do chocolate of the day. Today's chocolate of the day is chocolate that Megan's parents brought back from a trip to Spain and Italy. And let's see if I can get this so the camera can see it. There we go. It is this rough ground chocolate, which I don't think I've had before. We had it for the first time up in Chicago a few days ago. And it's not creamy like chocolate that I'm used to. Rather, it's very granular, very, very interesting texture. And I really enjoyed it. I think I do prefer like the traditional creamy chocolate, but there's a certain appeal to this. I can see this being good to eat with like a cup of coffee or something like when you're drinking something else and you kind of want the chocolate to melt in your mouth and provide a little bit of texture. And actually not just melt in your mouth, but provide texture. So I don't know if you're familiar with this rough ground chocolate concept, but it's pretty interesting. What else is going on? Ivan says, any news on new games or Tapestry's expansion? So Ivan, you can look at in the e-newsletter, we have a chart that shows like the progress of our various games, and some that have code names, others that I've just named the expansion there. And you can kind of see how they're coming along there. We have a couple expansions in the works right now. As for new games, no, I don't have any news about those yet, though. But we will, as usual, hopefully have 2 new releases in 2020 that I will talk about closer to their release, much closer to their release. Let's see. Rob says, Walter, is that you in the chair? And actually, that's Biddy over there in the chair back there. You can actually see him now because of the new camera. Yeah, he's taking a nap back there right now. I'll leave him on camera so you can see what he's up to. And all right, looks like we are. David says, you keep talking about coffee, Jamie. It won't be long before I cross over to our side. Megan's influence, I suspect. Yeah, I do often. I like to treat Megan to a little coffee in the morning. So I walk down to Starbucks every now and then, or other coffee shops. There's another coffee shop in the area. And I have taken to wanting to get something there too. And I don't always want hot chocolate like early in the morning. And so I've discovered that the lattes that they have at Starbucks, there's coffee in them, but there's a lot of other stuff in them too. So I can consume them without getting too jittery. And I have been enjoying them. So I think I've crossed over a little bit. I don't know if I'll ever be able to drink like just straight black coffee though. It's so bitter. I don't know how people actually enjoy that, but maybe I'll give it a try someday. Maybe next year I'll be saying how much I love black coffee, and I can't imagine drinking it any other way. So let's get to some news here. So one of the big things I decided kind of on a whim yesterday, this just came out of a random thought that I had. I was putting together our e-newsletter and I was featuring a few different items like the Scythe Metal Mechs, the Viticulture wine glasses, the Wingspan European expansion, and my little scythe. Just some random gift ideas that I thought people might like to explore on our web store. And I thought, you know, why don't I make this a little fun? And I said, for the next couple days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday afternoon, each of these afternoons, I'm going to check in with all the orders that have been placed during that time, starting right now when I sent the newsletter. And I'll pick a few random orders, and I'll add something special to them, something that wasn't part of the order, something I'll actually look at the order and look at the person's buying history on Shopify on our web store to see if not on Shopify in general, on our web store specifically, and I'll see if there's something special that I can add to their order. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully it'll at worst be neutral, and at best be fun for the people who receive something that they didn't expect, and hopefully it'll work out. So just doing a little fun thing. So if you place any order on our web store over the next couple of days, there's a chance that you'll get a surprise in the box in addition to what you ordered for free. I'm not going to charge you anything for this, obviously, because you didn't order it. And the one thing I kind of emphasize in the e-newsletter is you're not going to know about the surprise until you open the package. So please don't email me and say, hey, was I selected? That gets really annoying really fast. Rather just this be a fun surprise thing. If you open your box, there's something cool inside, something extra, that's great. If not, you got the thing that you ordered, hopefully. And if not, let me know. Juan says, I'm waiting for a video of your top games to give as presents on these holidays. Well, Juan, like I was just saying, you can look at our e-newsletter for stuff that you can get from Stonemaier Games that might be good gifts. I broke it down in different categories of stuff so if you're thinking about someone that you want to give a gift to, these things might make you think of someone in particular. That might be helpful. I don't really do, well, at least this year, I typically, maybe I did one last year. I might have done like a gift giving video last year. So check out my YouTube channel in case I did one. I don't remember doing one. But I will be doing a top games of 2019 at some point, hopefully in the next few weeks. Maybe I should accelerate that to help you with that buying decision. But yeah, that's, and I'll do, yeah, that's probably the only video that may help you with that. But thank you for letting me know, and hopefully that'll be helpful. I'll maybe put that out this Sunday or the next Sunday. Maybe I'll accelerate it to this Sunday. I'm just hesitant to do a top games of 2019 before 2019 is over. That's my only hesitation. David says, those 2 new releases in 2020, is that counting expansions or full games? So yeah, David, our typical method is release 2 new games every year, or 1 or 2 games, and then other expansions. So the 2, that limit of 2 is only for the games themselves, not for expansions. Rob says, have I ever toyed with the idea of making a living card game? I've toyed with it a little bit. There was so the other day I posted on, actually, Rob, you're gonna have me bring up a different topic here, but I'll come back to it. The other day on the Scythe Facebook group, I posted a poll where I said, you know, what if someday I made a completely new game in Jakub Rosalski's wonderful 1920 plus world, the world that Scythe is based in? What if I made a new game instead of, because I'm done making Scythe stuff. I'm done making stuff for Scythe, the game. But what if I made a new game? And I posted a poll offering some options to see what people would be most excited about. And the 2 most selected options were a deck building game and a 2-player game. Kind of like what 7 Wonders Duel is to 7 Wonders. It's a completely different game, but it also feels a little bit like 7 Wonders. And one of the people in this group had a really nice appeal for a living card game, which is, for those of you who don't know, a living card game is a term coined by Fantasy Flight Games, where it's basically a non-random collectible card game. So you get a pack of cards, you know exactly what's in that pack of cards, and you add it to your collection of cards, whether you're building a deck. Usually you're building a deck in these games. Or sometimes it's like just a new thing that it's adding, like with Arkham Horror card game, it adds a new story element to the game, something like that. And the key to this is that there are regular releases of these packs over time. So Rob, in short, I would consider it, but it's also hard for me to, usually if I design something, I try to design all the stuff for that game, and I don't want to hold it back. But I'm not very good at, so But if I designed a living card game, I wouldn't want to just design one part of it up front and wait until later to design other stuff. So I don't know. I don't know what I'll do. I've been thinking about it for the deck building game. Like, do I do that, or do I just release some expansions in the future? I'm not sure, but we'll see. Feel free to, those of you watching or listening to this, feel free to chime in with your thoughts about living card games, what you like about them, what you don't like, how you could see them working with kind of the Stonemaier method of putting as much stuff in the original core box as possible. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. All right, I'll see if I'm missing any questions here, because that was one of the big topics I wanted to discuss today, that Scythe poll. You can still check it out at the Scythe Facebook group if you'd like. David says, hey, Jamie, have you thought about doing a Scythe's 8-player mat to make it playable with up to 8 players? I appreciate you asking, David, but no. Like I said, I'm done making Scythe stuff. There are various reasons that I haven't made an 8th player mat. We tested one. But I really didn't want people to play with 8 players. It's just so many. 7 is already so many. And so I didn't really want to encourage that. And B, there's 7 different like configurations of mats. And then there's an 8th configuration that is just too powerful. Like, we play tested it and it was just too powerful. There probably are ways to nerf it, but that 8th combination just didn't work. So no, I don't ever plan on doing that. But I think someone made like a fan version. There is a version I think that you can print off Board Game Geek somewhere if you want to give it a try. Someone says that they would order Wingspan if we had it in stock. I know it's frustrating not to have Wingspan in stock. Originally, we were supposed to have it this week, and production got bumped back by just a week, and that's not a lot, but in the holidays, it makes a big difference. And I didn't find out about this until a couple weeks ago. But we are air freighting some copies of Wingspan in. So we are going to have some copies really later this week and early next week. I'm not exactly sure when I'll send out the notification, but if you want Wingspan, make sure you go to our web store, the Wingspan page on our web store, and you enter your email for a back in stock notification, because there will be some copies available very, very soon, in just a couple days, for you to receive it in time for certain holiday days like Christmas. Joshua says, and Joshua is the person behind the Stonemaier Games podcast, who takes these videos and turns them into just audio files and posts them. Thank you, Joshua. Joshua says, having a larger group than normal for a day of games this weekend. He is having this. How do you structure that with a larger group? I'm used to game nights being 4 to 6. That's a great question for me, actually, because usually my weekly game group is around 10 to 12 people. And basically what we do is we'd usually divide up. It's rare that we try to play a game with everybody. Sometimes we do, but it's pretty rare. So usually at the beginning of game night, we might play a filler game as people are arriving. And then maybe 20 minutes into the game day, we divide up into different groups. Some people have strong preferences for what they want to play. Some people are flexible. Usually I try to get some people to just pick a game and put it on the table, and then people can gravitate to 1 or 2 or even 3 games. But yeah, Joshua, I have enough tables, and you can hopefully provide tables to have, I would say, at least 3 game tables going. Let's see what other topics. I did play some games myself over Thanksgiving weekend. I played Between Two Castles of Mad King Ludwig. I played Tokaido, Mysterium. I was the ghost in Mysterium, and we actually did really well. Played Go and Azul. And Go was very interesting. I was playing against Megan's mom, who has been using Go as a teaching tool in her classroom. And I don't think I've ever played, or it's been a really long time since I played. I recently watched a documentary about Go called AlphaGo. And so I thought, I'll give this a try. I'm sure I'll be fine. And she crushed me. She absolutely crushed me in the first game. And so we played again. Like, I conceded pretty early because she just was destroying me. And so we played again, and we ended up with such a close game that I ended up putting it on Instagram, putting a photo of it on Instagram just to ask people what they thought, who they thought was winning, because it was so tight. We kind of ran out of time to actually finish it. But it was really interesting. Tough game. Tough, like very mentally involved game of Go. I'm curious if any of you have ever played Go. I need to give chess a try again for the first time in many years. I haven't played chess in a long time, but I used to play a ton as a kid. So I need to give that another try as well. Charles says, does your special promotion include the champion shirt orders? Charles is referring to something we did for Stonemaier Champions recently. But Charles, no, the The special thing that we're doing is just for orders that are actually placed starting this morning when the e-newsletter went out, going forward through Friday afternoon. Ivan has a very nice thing from his wife about Stonemaier games. Okay, Brian says, not a question but a comment. He would love another Charterstone printing. And Brian, actually, I do have some good news about that. I guess it's not really clear in our e-newsletter because I didn't put it there. But we are making more Charterstone for the first time in a while, and it should be ready. I think the date is April, maybe March, but probably April, that we will finally have a new printing of Charterstone. It's almost identical to previous printings, except that we are including the FAQ as a printed document in the box instead of something that you have to go to our website and print, because that FAQ is really helpful for playing. And I do want to give a shout out actually right there to Clank Legacy, which I've been playing and enjoying. I just played game 3 on Monday, and we checked the FAQ on Clank Legacy, and there's almost nothing there, which is not a knock on Clank Legacy at all. I'm just impressed that they were able to have such clarity in the game, and they didn't really miss anything. Missed very few things. So far we've really only had 2 rules questions in Clank Legacy, and they weren't things that an FAQ or like an errata style FAQ would need to address. So really well done to Direwolf Studios and Clank Legacy, and Renegade. I think Renegade was involved as well. Chad says that he managed to get a great deal on a used Tzolk'in game. I also managed to get a great deal on Teotihuacan. I hear they're very similar. How would you compare the two? I know they're the same designer and kind of a similar theme, but I found the games themselves to be very different. Very, very different. I love Tzolk'in. Teotihuacan didn't really resonate with me, but I know a lot of people love it, and it is a beautiful game. But Tzolk'in is it's one of my favorite games of all time, and Teotihuacan hasn't ever even been considered for like a top 100 list that I've made. So that's just personal preference, but I really, really love Tzolk'in. I would recommend you give that a try first. Patty says, my partner is a huge birder. I'm trying to get him Wingspan for Christmas. When is it going to be available again? We should have it in our web store within a few days. So just make sure to sign up for a back in stock notification on our web store, and I will let you know when it's back in stock. I'll keep looking at questions in a second. Let me see if there's anything else fun that I should mention. As I mentioned, anyway, any of you joining me now, the camera's a little washed out today because I have a new camera and it's much better at picking up light than my old camera. You can see Biddy in the background there, which you couldn't see before. And I wanted to ask you if you got any fun treats for yourself last week due to Black Friday week sales. I got this camera and I got a Roomba because there's lots of hardwood floors in my new condo, our new condo, and cat litter goes everywhere. So I have a Roomba to help us pick up all that cat litter. But what did you get? Did you treat yourself to anything over the last week of special sales and whatnot? Stefan says, can I talk about the line between designing a game that you would want to play and a game you think the public will enjoy? Do you struggle with any of that in a specific game? I would say, Stefan, for me as a designer, I know that I'm going to have to play test a game so many times that I don't think that I could even consider designing a game that I wouldn't actually enjoy playing. I do always keep everyone else in mind. I'm not designing the game just for me. Really, I'm not designing the game for me at all. I'm designing it for other people, but I need to enjoy it throughout the process. So I think that would be really difficult for a designer to do, to design a game that they actively don't enjoy, even though they know a lot of people would enjoy it. That would be really tough to do. Yeah, that would be tough. Annika has joined us, perhaps with my niece. So Maudie, if you're watching right now, Uncle Jamie says hi. Hope you're doing well. Sakaria says, which mechanism is your latest, wow, this is awesome, I haven't seen it before experience? Well, recently it's not that I haven't seen this before, but I've been really pleased to find simultaneous play mechanisms in a few games where if they hadn't had simultaneous play, it really would have slowed down the game. Those games are 2 factory games. They're Fantastic Factories and Chocolate Factories. They both have a phase in the game where you just run your factory and you puzzle it out, and you have plenty of time to do so because all the other players are doing the same thing at the same time. So I don't know if that's quite a mechanism, but simultaneous play is something I'm really enjoying in certain games. I don't think it fits in every game, but it really works in those games quite well. David says, are there any years that stand out in your mind as standout years for great board game releases? My favorite year is 2015 for Blood Rage and Time Stories, also 2017 for Gloomhaven and Seventh Continent. I have to go back and look at my list, David. Off the cuff, no, I can't think of any year that really stands out like that, but that isn't to say that there isn't one. I just can't think of one offhand. Sharon K says, as for living card games, don't make it where you put together a deck yourself. So she's saying that she likes pre-constructed decks that you don't have to work on yourself. That does take extra time away from game night. Sonia says, but I know some people will also really enjoy that. Sonia says, we just bought Scythe. Do you have any tips for someone about to learn and play the game? Yeah, Sonia, that's a good question. So I would recommend two things. One is I have a video about how to teach Scythe. You can find it on our website, and also if you search YouTube for Stonemaier games, like how to teach Scythe, you'll see a video with me talking about how to teach Scythe. I think that video is really, really helpful. However, you need someone to actually know how to play the game, and for that, I would recommend watching the Watch It Play video about how to learn Scythe. Rodney goes over all the rules that you need to know, which is all of the rules, and he does so really, really well. So I'd recommend watching that. I think it really helps. You might still need the rule book after that, but Rodney does a really, really good job. Yeah, actually, if you watch those two videos, you'll get everything that you need. Dexter says, will you do more for Tapestry? I've only played a few so far, but I like it more civs maybe. Yes, Dexter, yeah, we are working on an expansion for Tapestry right now. Just scrolling through to see if I have any questions. Stan says, do I have a website that discusses how to set up a blind playtesting event for a game that I'm trying to develop? Stan, I don't think I have an article specifically about that, but if you go to our website and look under, let me make sure I get the right page here. Go to stonemeiergames.com and then go to Kickstarter, and then look for how to design a tabletop game. And there's a category on that page with a bunch of articles about playtesting. So I don't know if they'll specifically help with what you're doing here, but they might help a little bit. You can also look for my articles about the Stonemaier Games Design Day. I host an event once a year that is essentially a playtesting event, and you might get some ideas from that as well. While I'm looking over here at my other screen, let me see if there's anything else from the e-newsletter that I should mention. Between Two Castles Digital Edition launched in the middle of last month. So I just mentioned that in this e-newsletter that it is now live. So if you enjoy Between Two Castles or you want to try it for the first time, the app has gotten some great reviews so far from people, and I think they did a really good job with it. If you play Tapestry and you're not aware of this, if you play Tapestry and you haven't heard about this, we updated a few of the starting resources essentially for a few of the civilizations that were either had data reported as being a little overpowered or a little underpowered. Obviously, this is something that we playtested extensively in advance of publishing Tapestry, but we now have many thousands of people who have reported data, and that data has been really helpful. So we've done a deep dive analysis into that data and come up with a few starting changes for a few of the civilizations, and there's a document on our website, on the Tapestry page of our website, that you can easily reference or print out with your copy of the game, just so you have it on hand and can easily make those little tweaks. It's not something that you have to remember throughout the game. It's just at the very beginning of the game, something to do, and then you can forget about it. There's a mention of the Wingspan augmented reality or Wingspan inspired augmented reality game on the e-newsletter as well, and I think that's all the major news. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, if you do order anything from our web store starting now and through Friday afternoon, you have a chance at being randomly selected by me to have a random special surprise added to your package, added to your order. I'm going to customize this for each of the orders that I randomly select. So I'll basically randomly select a few orders, and I'll look at each one and see what can I do to make this order extra special. And I'll do my best to do that. And you'll know if you were selected when you get your package and there's something special inside of it. Otherwise, You weren't selected, but thank you for ordering anyway. Miles says, what were the results of the Scythe-themed game poll? Yeah, so Miles, the top two, which I'm really focusing on, are deck building and a two-player only game. The two-player only game, we'll have to figure out if we actually do that, because traditionally my company, Stonemaier Games, has only published games that play from 2 to 5 players, that scale up to at least 5 players, ideally 6. So I'm probably going to focus more on the deck building game first to see if I can make that happen. See if Jakob is excited by it too. The Dice Odyssey says, I saw your survey the other day about some alternate style Scythe game. Yeah, the same topic here. What's up with that? You know, Scythe is currently my favorite game. Yeah, so it's just a hypothetical question that I threw out there. I just wanted to put it out there to see if people would be excited about it, and to see if any of the things that raced up the poll were ideas that I was excited about as well. Leo says, have I played Dale of Merchants? It's his favorite deck builder. I have not played it, but I appreciate the recommendation. I'm pretty sure I watched a video about it, but I will watch another one as I'm thinking about deck building recently. I did do a Sunday sit-down video recently on top 10 deck building games, and another one on set collection, and another one, the most recent one, on drafting games with a drafting element to them. Those are all on YouTube. If you search for me or Stonemaier Games, you should be able to find the YouTube channel. You can also look on our website and find our YouTube channel linked there in the About section. Miguel says, what's your favorite game from Vital Lacerda? I would probably say Kanban. Miles says that Go breaks his brain. I can see that happening. There's so many possibilities in Go. The Dice Odyssey says, have I played Suburbia? I think I've played it just once, but I definitely have played it, yeah. I think I have a video about it as well. Sharon K says, what about more content for Charterstone? I don't plan on making more content for the cardboard version of Charterstone, but the Charterstone digital team might add more scenarios and maybe even a new campaign to the digital version. And who knows, maybe someday I'll be so inspired by what they create there that I'll make a cardboard version of it, but I really don't have any plans to do that. And Carlos says, oh, and thank you, David, for linking that How to Design a Tabletop Game link above here. Carlos says, what are your thoughts on Brass? Do I like Shire or Birmingham more? I've played both. I think I've played Birmingham 3 times and Lancashire maybe twice, and it's a really impressive game. It doesn't quite click with me, and I don't really know why. It's not a knock to the game. It just personally, it isn't a game that I'm drawn to play again. But there's a lot to enjoy about it. I love positive player interaction in games, and there's lots of positive player interaction in these games. So I really like that element about it. As for choosing between the two, I think I slightly prefer Birmingham, but both seem pretty similar to me. Gerald says, am I making a deck builder? I am brainstorming a deck builder right now. I don't know if I'm making one, but I'm brainstorming one right now. Amin says, did I do a design diary for viticulture and Scythe? I can't find them on your site. I love to read them. I don't have a design diary per se, but if you look under the media pages for both of those games, you'll find a lot of interviews with people who wanted to talk to me about the design process of those games. So you can listen to or read some of those interviews to learn more about them. Ivan says, I've read something online about introducing mythological birds into Wingspan. So we currently don't have that in the works, but if we ever do anything like that, it'll probably be a little promo pack, like a little promo pack of extinct birds, a little promo pack of mythological birds or fictional birds, things like that. Other topics here. My most recent article on the Stonemaier Games website was about Baby Yoda from The Mandalorian. Was talking about the appeal of having something really cute next to something really gritty, like The Mandalorian next to Baby Yoda. I think that juxtaposition can work really well in product design, and so I wrote an article about that. Yeah. I'm curious if you can actually. There was a fun article to write, and people had some other examples that they thought of from other forms of media where there's something cute next to something gritty. But if you have any other examples, I'd love to hear your thoughts about that in the comments. It's something that I want to keep in mind in terms of the future games that I design, or at least one future game that I design. Brian says, any chance the purple eggs will be added to the 75 eggs, 75, not 72 eggs sold on your web shop? At least I think it's 75. How many eggs are in Wingspan? I thought it was 15 eggs each. For some reason, I'm thinking it might be 18. I think it's 15. How many of each color egg are in Wingspan? Somebody look that up. But Brian, no, they won't be added to that, but they will be added to the pick and pack. Well, they will be added at some point by themselves. Let me see if I have a reminder to my team to do that. Yeah, I do have a reminder to them to look into that at some point. So it'll happen at some point. Tom says, have I had a chance to play Marvel Champions? Yeah, I did a video about it maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. I'm glad you're having a lot of fun with it. Yeah, I played Iron Man and had fun playing Iron Man. I'm way behind here. I'm catching up on what people say that they got on their Black Friday week here. Jacopo says that, oh, just a nice thank you. Thank you, Jacopo. I appreciate you saying that. Rob says that he recently treated himself and adopted, rescued 2 kittens. That's really cool, Rob. I love kittens. I hope they're doing well. Cameron chimed in to share a link to a recent article that includes an interview with me that we talked about player interaction. So feel free to check that out on the link that Cameron provided here. Amin says, what do you think people like to read from blogs about board game design? Will they be bored if I talk about my design decisions in detail? Maybe. I mean, I think it depends on how you present it. I think the key is to, as you're writing, to keep your audience in mind. Think, is this paragraph too long for someone to read? Is this interesting? Is this going to be interesting for someone else? I think that's a good question for you to constantly ask yourself. It's something that I ask myself every time I make a video, every time I'm talking on this thing. You guys could tell in that video where I was like, is anyone actually going to find this interesting? I think about that all the time. And so I think it's good for you to think about that. I don't think by default someone will be bored if you talk about your game decisions in detail, but the way you present it is going to be what makes the difference. Amin also says, what is my favorite book on business and or marketing that is particularly relevant for the board game industry? It's been a while since I've read one. I liked the book, I think it's called Influence. But it's been a while since I've read that. I also like Simon Sinek's work. Simon Sinek writes about running a company. There's some good TED Talks by Simon Sinek about the power of asking why, or figuring out what your why is. Start with the why. And there's a book, what is the book called? I'm blanking on the name right now. There's a book by the founders of 37 Signals that is really good as well, but I'm blanking on the name right now. Again, that's more about running a company than about designing games or game marketing. But Influence, if Influence is the right book name, that was very helpful. Again, it helped me think about other people, put myself in their shoes, what's appealing to other people. Mihir says, any update on Scythe on Android or iOS? Now, I know you know, I'm not in frequent contact with the developers there, and yeah. So as far as I know, they are still working on the Steam version. We're finding the Steam version getting enough critical mass on the Steam version to justify the added expense of putting it on iOS or Android. Chris says, am I hiring? We're not, but we actually did just very recently make our first full-time hire, other than myself, ever. So we won't be hiring, I don't think, for a long time. But if you are interested, feel free to put a job application on our website. We have a place where you can just tell us why you're awesome and why we should consider you if we are hiring in the future. Yeah, look at our website for like the job application page. Jeff says, any chance we'll ever see an Effenbergs Effenberg's version of expansion for Wingspan. I don't know what that is, so I don't know Effenberg's. Yeah, I don't know what that is. There's a comment here. I'm reading a comment about, I asked a question earlier if you're just joining us about living card games, what people like or dislike about them. And yeah, there's some interesting comments here. Matthew says, our group loves Scythe and has played a ton of it. The one thing that drew us in were the characters and the animal companions. Do you think you'll ever make a game where you utilize an animal companion or another expansion? So not another expansion for Scythe, but maybe if I make another game in the Scythe world, it would feature those characters and those relationships between human and animal. And my little Scythe does have those animals, but without the human characters. And I am working on another game that does have the concept of like animal companions / pets in it. Yeah. So it will show up again. That's something that I like too. That really drew me to Jakob's work. When I saw that bear was really cool. Ernani says, can you recall a mechanism that you really loved but ultimately decided to drop it from one of your games because you couldn't streamline it? Oh yeah, I mean, there are plenty of mechanisms that I've tried to incorporate into my games where it just didn't work. Scythe comes to mind in particular because Scythe was originally inspired by Dead of Winter and Imperial Settlers. Every player had their own deck of cards, and there were a lot of individual characters out on the board. I like that personal touch of Dead of Winter, having a lot of unique individual characters. And neither of those things really ended up in the game at all. Amin says, do I like educational games? Wingspan is a great one, for instance. You know, I don't actually consider Wingspan an educational game. I think it does. I think there are things that you can learn from Wingspan if you want to, from the flavor text. But I don't think it necessarily is an educational game. So I like games like that have like subtle things that you could learn from the game, but it's not beating you over the head with it. I think Genius Games does a really good job of designing fun, clever games that also teach things. And recently I played Pathogenesis, and I definitely learned some stuff about pathogens by playing Pathogenesis. Jacopo says, since the industry is strongly moving towards the design of smaller incremental turns, something that I'm a big fan of, I like micro turns. In my opinion, what is the highest number of decisions a player should take during his turn? You have a sweet spot number? I like 1 to 2. Yeah, I like one to two. So like in Scythe, how you can take a top action or a bottom action, but there are even decision points within those actions. It's top action, bottom action, or both, or neither. And there are little micro decisions within that decision itself. That's my preference. I like short, quick turns to keep the flow of the game moving. And so I think 1 to 2 is a sweet number for that, but it really depends on the game, as you said. Some other quick things about what I did over Thanksgiving break, in case you were interested. I was in Chicago. We took Amtrak up there, which was really nice. I haven't taken an Amtrak train in a long time, and it was way better than driving and way better than flying, especially for something within range. Like if it had been a trip across the country, it probably would have been pretty annoying. But taking a 5-hour train ride and just relaxing and not having to get to the airport like 2 hours early, it was wonderful. It was really, really nice. We went bowling, which was a really nice like family activity to do. I haven't gone bowling in a while, but I had a lot of fun with that. I bowled a 186, which is kind of on the upper edge of what I've done in the past. So I was happy with that. And we also went bouldering. We went to a rock climbing gym called First Ascent in Chicago. Usually I do top rope climbing where I have a rope attached to me, so it was a little different experience to go bouldering and give that a try. But I had a lot of fun with it. So what did you do? If you celebrated, if you're in the U.S., and you celebrated Thanksgiving, what kind of family activities did you do? Did you do anything special related to where you traveled or with your family? Let me know in the comments. Ivan says, yeah, here we go. I recall a few months ago there was an actual release date for digital Scythe on iOS, but we're still waiting for Scythe. Yeah, same what I said to Mahir. I'm not aware of any progress being made on Scythe iOS. Justin says, do I keep track of your played games? I do keep track of games that I play by rating them, but otherwise I don't keep track of scores or plays or anything like that. Brennan says, what is my favorite Lord of the Rings or Hobbit movie? I love Fellowship of the Ring. That's that's the one that I can watch the most, that I have watched the most. There's something about the pacing and the starting in the Shire. Like the Shire is such a pleasant place, and then all the elven places they go, and yeah, I love Fellowship of the Ring. Matthew says, any expansions or ideas in the works for the animal companions in Scythe? Would love a game focused on animal companion and player. Yeah, I mean, it might. I think there's a good chance if I make another Scythe themed game, they'll show up in that game. Justin says, have I had the chance to play Space Base? If so, what are my thoughts? Yeah, I think I've played it maybe 3 or 4 times at this point, and Megan and I actually are planning on playing through the Shy Pluto campaign. So we have that actually. I'm pointing, just I know exactly where it is in the other room. We are going to do that pretty soon. Jamie from Secret Cabal pops up here. He says, I know this is centric to my world as a podcaster, so I hope it's of interest to others here, but how do you gauge the value of the media in your marketing? Do I analyze the sales statistics coinciding with video podcasts and blog releases featuring my games? Jamie, I probably should. I do love data, and I love analyzing data. Well, video got really washed out there for a second there. I don't know what's going on. But I don't analyze too deeply that. Basically, I do use review copies as a major form. Yeah, there we go. Clarified a second. Probably the bandwidth. I do use review copies as a major form of marketing for our games. And I don't know, Jamie, I think you've probably seen the form that reviewers fill out to request games from us. And we ask for a lot of different data, like how often do you create content? How big is your audience? There's one other one. What is your audience engagement? So I'm looking at all those factors in deciding who I send free games to. So most of my analysis is up front when I decide what to send to whom, rather than on the back end. Hopefully that kind of answers your question, but feel free to ask again if you want to delve deeper into that. Jonathan says he saw that I'm a fellow backer on the Zorro dice game. Yeah, it looks fun. Looks like a fun game. Is there something in particular I liked about it? I like the creators. I like Brian at I don't know what the company's called now, but it was Overworld Games. I just like his work, and so it's always on the radar for me. And the themes seem fun. The dice rolling seem fun. I think it has some push your luck elements. I love push your luck. Yeah, so just look fun, and the price was right. I think with a lot of Kickstarter games, if the price is really high, then I would have to really, really research it to go into it. But if the price is right, I'm more inclined just to buy it. Chad says, have I been able to fully catch up with work since I've been back from New Zealand? Close. There's one game that I've been neglecting a little bit, game design that I've been neglecting. But other than that, all my regular day-to-day operations stuff, I'm definitely caught up on that. Gerald says, we're getting political here. What do I think of the U.S. presidential candidate Yang's idea to introduce VAT for large online stores like Amazon? Actually, I wasn't aware of that. And using that money to give all U.S. citizens $1,000 per month. So that was how he was going to get that money. I wasn't aware of how he was getting that $1,000. Introduce VAT for large online stores. I don't know. I didn't know that was the case. I'd have to research how that would impact my company. Honestly, that's my priority. I would have to look at that first and consider that first. But thank you for mentioning that. I'll look. I didn't know. I'll make a note of it because I wasn't aware that was how he was going to get that $1,000. Chad says, using Ryan Lockett as an example, do I think a game designed and illustrated by the same person would be more appealing from a customer's perspective? Would it be a selling point? Honestly, I don't think it matters at all. I think customers want great, immersive, unique, beautiful art, and they want great, innovative, unique, fun, intuitive gameplay and mechanisms. I don't think customers generally care where they come from unless they have a really loyal following. But even then, I don't think it matters that the two are the same. I think it's great and amazing that Ryan can do both. And I know he has a lot of admiration in the industry for being able to do both, but I don't think customers care, in my opinion. Feel free to disagree if you're watching this. If you care about, if you are more likely to buy a game because the art and design was done by the same person, let me know in the comments. Charles says, any good eats in Chicago? If I go back, I highly recommend trying one of Rick Bayless's restaurants like the Frontera Grill. He had an amazing duck dish with a chocolate mole there 3 years ago, or a few years ago. Yeah, I should have asked for recommendations before we went. Although the people that we were staying with are definitely foodies, and they had a lot of great recommendations. We went to a Chinese restaurant where they carved a duck right in front of us, and it was a delicious duck. We went to a restaurant called, I think it was Roku, a Japanese restaurant in downtown Chicago that was delicious. We had a lot of good home-cooked food, too. We went to a restaurant that I'm blanking on the name of, but it was like a Cajun restaurant that had really good food. Now has me craving sausage and biscuits and gravy because it was really, really good. Where else did we go? I think I'm forgetting at least one really delicious place. Because we went downtown for another restaurant. What was that other restaurant? Oh, it was an Italian place. We went to the Eatery in downtown Chicago and ate at one of the Italian restaurants there. And I had Neapolitan pizza there. Neapolitan pizza is my favorite style of pizza. So it was really, really, really great, honestly. I love Neapolitan style pizza. Amin says, what's my favorite soccer team? I jump around a little bit because I don't have one team that I follow in particular. I follow mostly Champions League and English Premier League, and I like to see because I follow EPL. I like to see English teams do well in the Champions League. I follow Manchester United. I follow Tottenham. I follow Leicester, and I like to see kind of upstart teams do well. I also would love for Liverpool to win. I think they've deserved to win the league for a few years now. So I hope that I'm kind of rooting for Liverpool this year with Leicester coming in second. And Manchester United hopefully catching up a little bit. Nathan says, do I prefer space-based or Machu Koro? I got to say space-based just because there's, space-based. Yeah. I might as well say why. I have time here. So space-based, I think, does a really good job at, it starts off meaning that on your turn, when you roll the dice, you are going to hit something. Space-based starts out with that concept. And I love the idea in space-based of flipping those cards over and that they give you something a little different on other players' turns as soon as you upgrade them. It's just a really cool concept of having like your own tableau that you always hit when you roll dice, and an evolving tableau of having those cards become cards that you can hit when other players roll dice. Yeah, just really cool concept. And as Sharon K says here, I love that you get benefits on other people's turns. I think that feels really good when other people do stuff and you are engaged because you're gaining something from what they're doing. I think that's great in games. It's I guess a style of positive player interaction. It's not really a choice, but it's a form of positive player interaction. Amin says he wants to self-publish, but he doesn't have enough capital to pay a graphic designer or illustrator. So I'm considering finding a co-founder who has that capability. So I think that's a good way to go. Yeah, I think that's a good option to explore. Given, I think it's great that you acknowledge your limitations and restrictions, and that you're finding a solution for it. So I think that's definitely a possibility, especially if you work with them in to create stuff that you couldn't create on your own. I think that's awesome. Yeah. I think I've covered all of my topics for today, so I'm just available for questions for a few minutes if you have any more. To recap the things that I've talked about today, I talked about the Scythe poll of maybe creating a new game in the Scythe world. Briefly talked about Baby Yoda and cuteness in games. I mentioned that my recent Sunday sit-down videos have been about deck building, drafting, and set collection. I talked about how if you place an order between today and Friday afternoon on our website, you have a chance of being selected for a special surprise that I'm going to add to your game, maybe, if you are selected. And it will be customized. It's not like something set that I've decided in advance. I'm going to look at your specific order and decide something special to add to your order if you are randomly selected. I talked about recent plays of Between Two Castles, Tokaido, Mysterium, Go, and Azul. I talked about going to Chicago for Thanksgiving. Taking the Amtrak up there and both bowling and bouldering while I was there. I talked about this new camera that's making me really washed out, but you can see a lot more of the room. You can see Biddy back there in the background. And the Roomba I got to pick up all the cat litter I have in the condo. Those were the main topics I talked about today. I think I've covered that. Oh, and I mentioned that Between Two Castles digital is now available if you want to try out the digital version of that. that there are some updates to the civilizations and tapestry that you can download from our website. That there's a podcast version of this now. So if you can't usually tune into Facebook Live, but you want a podcast version of it, you can find that on our website. Yeah, I think that's it for today. Let's see if there's any other questions before I head on out. Jeff says, any thoughts on how to hide complexity in games to make the first look less overwhelming and easier to learn as you go? Yeah, Jeff, I think that's a great question. Something that I ponder often with my games. How can I start out very simply and add more? And I think a great example of this, I say you're designing a worker placement game. I think Lords of Waterdeep does a great job of this. Because Lords of Waterdeep has all those slots for buildings that you can build and add new actions to the board. But you always start off with the same core actions, and there aren't many of them. There's like, maybe 7 of them? So you're only giving players 7 choices very early in the game, but they've designed something specific to help that complexity grow throughout the game. You can also use cards. If you're using cards like in Concordia, I think Concordia does this really well, where Concordia tells players exactly what they can do on their turn because of the cards that they have in their hand. And those cards tell you what the actions do. So you don't really need much information at all. You just have to be able to read those cards and look at them and make a decision. Yeah, I think those are 2 techniques. Many other games do it in other ways. So, but it is, I think, a great question, something that I try to keep an eye on when I design games. Chad says he wanted to throw the name Darren Tan my way. He recommended Darren Tan as an artist. Yeah, thanks, Chad, for the recommendation. I'm always looking for great artists. Brandon says, any sneak peek of the My Little Scythe expansion? My kids are excited for it. That's great to hear that they're excited about it. I will be dropping some hints about it soon, but not quite yet. Pretty soon, though. Sicarius says, have I ever tried letting your players drafting different abilities or player powers in your games and letting them activate those during different tracks? That's a tricky thing. It actually ties into Jeff's question a minute ago. How much information how many choices do you give players really early on in the game? Because sometimes that can be a little overwhelming, either for new players or someone who hasn't played the game in a while. So that's why I generally stay away from that a little bit. For that reason, I generally stay away from that. Doing something like that in the middle of the game, I think, could be really interesting, though. Yeah. Although that's essentially what Concordia does as well. I think Concordia does that element really well. You start off with the same hand, and then it's fairly easy to acquire new cards that you're essentially drafting from other players. It's not quite a draft because they're not doing it at the same time as other players, but you're gaining new cards that give you more actions that differentiate you from other players. All right, it looks like I've reached the end of the questions here. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'll go put this up on YouTube right now, and Joshua will create a podcast out of it. I hope you have a great Wednesday. Enjoy your chocolate if you have some, and I'll see you next week. Take care.